Hi everyone, my name is Stuart Palmer and I'm the Schools Liaison Officer at Sidney Sussex College at the University of Cambridge. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what exactly super-curricular activities are and why they're so great, what they offer you, and why it's a good idea to invest some of your time into doing them in the next few months and years. So yeah, I'm going to explain a little bit about what supercurricular activities are, what counts, what doesn't count, and then I'll go on to talk a bit about why they're worth investing your time in. We're all busy, we've all got lots to do, so I'll talk a little bit about what you're getting out of supercurricular activities as well. And then towards the end of the video, I'll talk a bit about how you can sort of maximize the results you get from your supercurriculars, how they can really effectively, and I'll also tell you a few places where you can go to find supercurricular activities, some resource banks and things like that. So what exactly does supercurricular mean? I'm sure it's a term that you've heard from various places, probably like on university websites, on Learn Higher, UCAS, those sorts of websites as well. Your teachers might have thrown it around, but what exactly does it mean? Well, the word super is a good place to start. Super in its sort of Latin form means to go above or beyond something. So basically, supercurricular activities is anything that goes above or beyond your schoolwork. So anything that is related to the things you're studying in school, the subject you're studying in school, but is not actually part of that curriculum. So anything that goes beyond it. So it can be really related, it can be on a similar topic, but as long as it's not something that you're actually being taught specifically in school, it counts as a supercurricular activity. So say you're really interested in a certain aspect of your physics A-level or something like that, you can go and find reading that isn't part of that A-level course, but is specifically related to it, and that counts as a supercurricular activity. This is different to extracurriculars, which is probably, again, a term you've heard before, in the sense that an extracurricular activity is not academic. Extra just means outside. So extracurriculars is anything that is an activity that sits outside of your sort of schoolwork, your academic work. So things like sports, recreational activities, jobs, things like that. Those are your extracurriculars. Supercurriculars are academic. They're related to your subjects. And the reason that definition and that distinction is important is because universities, admissions people are really interested in hearing about your supercurriculars because they show us your academic work and your academic abilities, how you've been sort of honing them and developing them, both inside school and outside school. Your extracurriculars are important too, but maybe less so in sort of your admissions, in your university admissions terms, because extracurriculars are great at making you a well-rounded individual, is developing your character, your personality, but your supercurriculars are more about your academic stuff. So that's what it means, but what actually counts as a supercurricular activity then? Well, it needs to meet three really basic criteria if you want to count it as a supercurricular, really. So just ask these questions, essentially, of whatever you're doing and see if it fits. So it needs to be relevant to the subjects, the subject or subjects that you want to study. And this can be really broadly focused. Like if you're just, say, really interested in studying sciences, it can just be that basic. It doesn't have to be, I want to study aeronautical engineering. It doesn't have to be that specific. But it's just something related to what you want to be studying, either at school, at college, or at university or beyond. It needs not to be part of your GCSE or your A-level course content. It needs to be something outside of that. So again, it can be related, but not specifically part of it. And it needs to have some academic content. So it needs to be in some sense academic. And that's a trickier kind of criteria to define. But as long as it appears to be written by credible sources, it's something that is not too sort of simplistic, and it has some form of academic quality, then it will really count. That last one is a trickier one to define, but don't worry too much. I'm sure just use your instincts essentially when it comes to that. So as long as it meets these three criteria, anything counts. So with that in mind, I mean, you have a think, like what was the last supercurricular thing you did? I'm sure you found this video because you're thinking about doing supercurriculars, but you've probably already been doing things like this. And you've probably already been doing supercurricular activities. So have a think and, what was it that you've already been doing, maybe that counts, that meets those three criteria. So in terms of things that you might have been doing or might want to do in the future, obviously the most basic and probably one of the most effective activities you could be doing is just doing more reading. Reading is something that will expand your horizons and expand your understanding and knowledge base more effectively than almost anything else. And that's true of pretty much any subject, whether it's in the arts and humanities, the social sciences, or the sciences. So whether you're reading books, journals, articles, magazines, newspapers, all of these things count as good examples of supercurricular reading, because all of those things will get you into the habit of reading frequently, reading critically, and if you're finding materials that are related to specific subjects and topics that you're interested in, it will be doing those, it will be honing those skills and expanding your knowledge of the subject you're wanting to study. Watching things is also a really great way to spark ideas and get a broader understanding of things. You can find out loads of like new ideas, new topics, new subjects that you hadn't even really known about before by watching TED Talks, online documentaries, lectures, and things like that have been posted on university or museum websites. There is a huge wealth of information and really accessible academic content available to you online that you can be watching. And those can be great starting points for then things that you go on to read more about and discover about afterwards. So all of these things kind of dovetail nicely. As I say, I will be giving more ideas of places to find this stuff at the end of the video. Listening to podcasts and audiobooks is also great. Again, that they work in much the same way as watching things. Podcasts are a great way to hear people just talking about ideas, talking about subjects and topics that you're maybe not familiar with or are related to things that you've been doing in school or at college. So listening is a great thing to be doing as well. Similarly, activities count as your supercurricular sort of engagement as well. So if you're doing something like a maths Olympiad, or if you take part in a study group or a reading group at school or outside of school, if you're entering any things like essay prizes, going on big trips, school trips and things like that, anything that is sort of related to your academic studies, your academic work, counts this. If you're going to summer schools or university taster days, subject taster days, those are again are really good ways of expanding your understanding of what you're wanting to study. Similarly, MOOCs, online courses, are great ways because Supercurricular is all about, as I say, expanding your knowledge of a subject, but also honing skills related to that subject. And MOOCs are a great way to do that. So there are loads of great online courses, free online courses that you can be doing in things like coding, close reading, anything like that, which is related to subjects, but also a good way just to be practicing. If you're thinking about going to university to study vocational degrees, things like medicine, veterinary medicine, architecture, anything like that, then getting some relevant work experience is also a good idea. So that's something you can be exploring. And finally, if you're doing anything at college that is sort of or that is project based, that's also a great way to expand your reading and a great sort of starting point for some supercurricular exploration, because you can sort of you can do your supercurricular reading and sort of feed that into a project, something like an EPQ or something like that. So that's really, those are all really good ways to be doing this. So why should you bother is a fair question. Obviously, the starting point for that is because it's fun. Like supercurricular exploration is it's something that is related to your schoolwork, sure, but it also should be something you enjoy. It should be something that you're interested in. It should be a subject that you're passionate about, and it should give you a better understanding of that. So do it because you enjoy it. That's the starting point, right? Because if you're not enjoying it, then it's probably the wrong thing to be doing. But still, you're putting effort in. So what else are you getting out of it? Well, if you're thinking about applying to universities, to highly competitive universities, then doing this kind of supercurricular work is a great way to show them a few things in your application. When you're able to talk about these things in places like in your personal statement and places like that, they'll be able to see that you're an enthusiastic student. That's great. They really want to see that. They'll see that you're resilient. Not only can you handle all of your schoolwork and all of your extracurriculars, but you've still got time and the resilience to go and do extra supercurricular work. you're open-minded, you can find resources, and you've also been taking time during your pre-university education to hone various degree level skills. Those are really great things to see, and that's what your supercurricular exploration will show. And again, the stuff that you put into your supercurriculars, it won't just pay off in places like your personal statement. It will pay off in all of the areas of your application. You know, it will show through in your results. It will show through in your teacher references. It will show through in pretty much every aspect. So it's not just for things to talk about in your personal statement. You yourself will develop a bunch of things from doing these extra reading and events and listening and watching. You'll get research skills. Just going out and finding these things is developing really important skills, because you're researching a topic. Even if it feels like you're just shoving like keywords into Google and taking stuff out, that is the basis of sort of basic research. So that's a really important skill, both for university, but also for later life as well. So that's a great skill to be working on. The reading and the activities and the MOOCs and all that sort of stuff will also equip you with exam skills that will help you when it comes to getting your results. It will deepen your subject knowledge. So if you're interested in a subject through what you're doing at school and college, you'll get a better understanding of that by going out and doing extra reading, extra listening, and things like that. And by doing that, you'll be able to think more deeply about the subject, but also think about whether or not you're actually interested in it long term. You'll be able to sort of develop that understanding and think, okay, am I interested in a specific area of history, or a specific area of philosophy, or engineering, or whatever it might be? And is that something I want to sort of focus on at university, or do I want to keep my options broad and open? So that's a good sort of payoff as well. And finally, you'll just get transferable knowledge. This stuff will help just make you a more well-rounded person as well. So it really pays off in a number of different ways. How does it actually help you get into uni? Well, as I say, like in your application, it will show through, and it will show admissions people or people that are reading your applications a number of things that they want to see that I just talked about. So it's good to think about your target audience as well here. It will pay off with them, these efforts that you'll be putting in. And when we think about what admissions staff are actually looking for, Super-Curriculars tick a lot of the boxes in that respect of what they're looking for. So a survey that was done a few years ago of admission staff, carried out in 2017, asked them what the most important traits in applicants were, what they like to see essentially in applicants. And the top 3 traits were these: evidence of a positive attitude towards study, evidence of a passion for their chosen course or subject, and evidence of an ability to think and work independently. So all of those are above 90%. Wanted to see that. And if you think about it, by doing supercurricular exploration, by doing all these extra things, you are showing all 3 of those things really well. You're showing that you enjoy studying because you do it both in school and outside of school. You show that you have a passion for your subject because you explore it again inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. You've taken everything further. And you're able to work independently. You're already doing this stuff. You're already going out and finding your resources, reading it, critiquing it, thinking about it, reflecting on it. So that's great. You're showing admission staff these things by doing this work. In terms of the least important traits, we don't need to think about those now. This isn't to say that any of those traits are not important. They are all important things to be doing, but they're just not necessarily things that admission staff need to hear about in your application. So they are important things to be doing to make you a well-rounded person and to obviously develop your character and all those things, but they're just not necessarily things that will be important in your actual application. So how can you get more out of what you're doing? Well, there are a few things. So just essentially don't do it passively is the sort of top tip I'll have. So rather than doing lots of extra reading, like reading loads of extra material, instead of doing that sort of passively, slim down what you're doing and do it a bit more actively. And all I mean by that is before you start watching a lecture on YouTube, or before you start reading an article or reading a magazine or something like that, think what you're trying to get out of it. Think what it is that you're trying to take out of that piece of reading or out of that lecture, and maybe note down some of those things. And when you're watching it, you can keep those things in mind. Like, be active in the way that you're engaging with these materials. And as you're doing them, think about critiquing them. Is this stuff credible? Is this stuff is what I'm reading here, justified by the evidence that's being presented. Like just think about things in an active sense. Once you've finished an activity, whether it's listening to a podcast or again watching a lecture, reading a book, try and summarize it. Take some notes down. Make sure you're keeping a record of these things, and that will help you process it mentally and remember it more effectively. But it will also give you a record to go back to when you've finished another book or when you've done your next activity, and that will let you do that second thing, find a connection. Because again, being able to like plot connections between these things, being able to tell admission staff or even your tutors or yourself what how these things are related to one another will show that you've engaged with it on that deeper level, and it will help you. It will just help you process it more effectively as well. And finally, build some time into all of this to reflect on what you've done, whether it's an event, whether it's a piece of writing you've done, whether it's a lecture you've been to. Take time to not necessarily write anything or do anything, just take time to sort of sit and think about it. Reflecting on these things will just help you process it. And whether that's going for a walk or listening to some music and thinking about it, it doesn't really matter. But just take some time to reflect. And if you sort of take some notes or take some ideas down, so much the better, because that will give you something to work from in the future. So be active in it, find connections between what you've done and what you're going to do, and reflect on those things a few times whenever you get the chance. And sort of ways to do all that: write about these things, keep a journal of what you've done, keep notes on what you're reading. Look out for things like essay competitions that are often subject specific, and you'll be able to then sort of turn what you've been reading and your super-curricular activities into an essay. Again, that's a great way to consolidate that kind of work. Talk to people. Like, talking about these things is so important, and it's so helpful as well, just to get you thinking and processing what it is you're doing. Whether you're talking to friends or family or teachers, or just to yourself in the mirror, like anything like that helps. Because talking about, why did you read that? What did you take out of it? Was it enjoyable? Was it terrible? Like, just giving, like verbalizing those things will help your brain process them, but it will also help you memorize them and also get you to justify what it is you think. And that's a really important part of like critical thinking, being able to justify your opinions and justify your judgments with sort of good analysis. So get ready to get talking about them. And as I say, building connections between what you've read, trying to get one thing to feed into another thing is a great idea. And then when you're doing all this stuff, again, it will pay off in the end, because it's going to be very useful when it comes to applying to universities, wherever you apply, whether it's to Oxbridge or other highly selective universities, or wherever you end up applying. Being able to talk about what you've done in school and outside of school is really important, because if you think about what admissions tutors will be looking for your specific subject, you'll be able to go through what it is you've done in your super-curriculars and think, okay, how do what I've read, what I've been doing, what MOOCs I've done, anything like that, how do these demonstrate the kind of skills that admissions tutors will be looking for? And you can find out what admissions tutors are looking for specific subjects by just going onto university subject websites, subject pages, and they will tell you, okay, you'll need, if you're applying to something like English literature, you'll need close reading skills, you need essay writing skills. If you're applying to something like computer science, you'll need coding skills, things like that. You'll need mathematical skills. So those sorts of skills are what I'm talking about here. You'll be able to make a list of the things you've been doing outside of school and college, and then use those in your personal statement. And there will be other videos and other places where you can find really good content on what to put in your personal statements. I'm not going to go into much detail here. But remember, it's not about the quantity of things you've done, it's about the quality of things you've done. And that's why I sort of say things like making sure you've been reflecting on what you're doing, building connections between what you're doing is so important, because you don't want to just list 30 things in your personal statement. You haven't got many characters, you haven't got many lines to use in a personal statement. So it's about the quality of the examples you have. But at the end of the day, your super-curriculars will serve as really good evidence for the skills that you have to do your course that you're applying for. Okay, so finally, where can you find these things? So there are loads of different places to find supercurricular resources. It can be really daunting to start with because there is so much information out there available to you. But a great first place to start is to talk to teachers. They know of really good resources. Talk to subject teachers as well, and they will be able to sort of help you with accessible reading and accessible sites and things like that. They're great places to start. You're probably already aware of loads of these resources as well, but if you go to university websites, the universities you're maybe interested in applying to, they will have examples of really good resources that you can be using right now to find reading or lectures or anything like that. At Sidney, Sussex, we have a page called Beyond the Syllabus, which gives you examples of free resources related to different subjects. So if you just Google Sidney, Sussex Beyond the Syllabus, you can find that and search for different subject resources. Similarly, if you go to the HE Plus website, which is a Cambridge University website, which is designed to provide free resources to college level students, again, related to different subjects, and they give you activities, reading lists, things like that to be doing. And if you want a really long list of subject-specific supercurricular suggestions of like reading, podcasts, lectures, stuff like that, then just Google Cambridge Supercurricular Suggestions, and you'll find quite a long PDF document, which is separated by subjects. And you can find loads of things in there. So those are all good ideas. Outside of that, as I said at the start, newspapers, podcasts, YouTube, these are all really good places just to get thinking, get finding basic materials to be listening to, watching, reading, to get your brain sort of working. Places like FutureLearn and Khan Academy are good places to start to find MOOCs to be doing if that's something you're interested in. You can find content on there that's sort of for the sciences, for the humanities, for the social sciences. So do go and have a look there, see if there's anything that really grabs you to be doing. And obviously, there's also loads of really great content out there for like virtual museums, virtual lectures, materials like that, where you can go to exhibitions, where you can see museums' collections and things like that online. Google Arts and Culture is a great place to start, but pretty much all of the big museums have really good websites where you can see their collections and their exhibitions online, often for free. And similarly, they'll have postings of lecture series and things like that that are being done. So, the British Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Science Museum, all of these big museums are great places to sort of find free content and do some exploring. So that's pretty much everything. Have fun exploring, and yeah, thank you for watching this video.